Hi all, today we'll discuss about system design real-time interview questions. So what all are the system design interview questions interviewer will ask? So the first question is how you design the URL shortener like bit.ly. So here the answers, how we will this, how we will use the design to sort this URL using URL shortener. So generate a short URL from the long URL, then sort this URL should be unique, and then we have to redirect this users to the original users when accessed, and then handle high traffic and scalability. So this is the requirement. Now we have a design approach. So how we will design this approach? So by using API design, we have create a API endpoint post or get. Post will have a shortened URL where we have to take the longest URL and then return the shortest URL. Get will have a shortest URL redirect to the original longest URL. For that purpose, we will use database. So the database we will use either NoSQL, Redis for faster read and write, so that immediately it will be read from the write from the database. As stored, we have short URL, long URL, expiry times and all. We have to store there in the database. Now, short URL generations, we will use the base code 62, base 62 encoding. We'll start from 09 AZ, small and capital to create a unique short key, and use hashing like MD5 SHA to 56 for consistent mapping. So scalings and all, we will use Redis cache for the frequent access URL. We will use sharding to distribute URL shortest storage across multiple DB. Sharding. And then we will use load balancer to distribute the request. So some of the consistency and availability will be there. So for this eventual consistency, using background applications and rate limit to prevent the abuse. So that way, by using these patterns and requirement design approach, we will write this URL. So next, system design interview questions. Now coming for the next, how you design distributed logging system. So for the distributed logging systems, this is the requirement. We will collect the log from multiple services first, then provide a real time search analysis, and then store the log efficiently. So for the design approach, logging pipeline. Service push the log to the Kafka. So there we are using Kafka. So service will push the log to the Kafka. Log processed by using log stack and process the log. So logs are stored in Elasticsearch for the indexing and all. Now scaling consideration, use Kafka partitions to distribute the log across the node. Then we will use shard elastic indices to improve the search in performance. And for the database retention and storage, we will use cold data storage S3 HDFS for the older log. TTL based evictions will use for the log cleanup. Now the question is we have to use the monitoring and alerting. So the monitoring and alerting we will use Grafana and Prometheus for the monitoring the log infrastructures. So this is the way where we have to monitor, manage the logging through the system design. Now coming for the next, how do you design a real-time chat applications like WhatsApp? So for the real-time chat applications you want to create for the system design, we have to create a requirement. So what all are the requirement is required? One-to-one or group chat. Then we have a message delivery status, either send, delivered, seen. Then we have support offline message. Then we have a scalability, low latency send. So this is the requirement to create a message. Now we have design approach. So tech stack we will use WebSocket, Kafka, Redis, Cassandra. and gRPC. So message flow will have WebSocket, uh, WebSocket maintenance, a persistence connection, and then Kafka handle a real-time messaging queue. Then Redis store temporary unread messages, and Cassandra will store the chat history. So NoSQL for high write throughput will be there. So that's why we will use NoSQL as a Cassandra. So as scaling and all, we will use load balancers for the client and WebSocket server, sharding message by user ID to distribute the load, and GEO applications for the global availability. So this is the system design for this. Now the next is very popular. How do you design the Netflix like video streaming service? So for that requirement, we have upload and store video. We have a stream video with adaptive bitrate. Then we have support multi-device streaming. Then we have handle high traffic. So this is the approach. So storage. So store video in S3 or SDFS. Then use CDN Cloud Front Akamai for faster access. Then we have a video processing. For the video purposes, we will use encode videos in multiple format using FFmpeg. Then use store different resolutions like 480 pixels, 720 pixels, or 1080 pixels. So for that we will use video processing, encode video with the multiple form, then store different resolutions, and then streaming architectures we will use HLS, HTTP high live streaming for the adaptive streaming, and load balance request with Naginx and load balancers. So scalability have microservices for video processing and recommendations, and Redis for caching a frequent access video. Now the next question is, how do you design a payment system like PayPal? So requirement: secure a transactions. PayPal secure the transaction, support multiple payment gateway, handle fraud detection. A design approach: how we will do? We have to create an API, post payment, process payment request, get transaction based on the ID, retrieve the transaction status. Database we have ACID compliant, SQLDB, Postgres SQL for transactions, Kafka to process the payment asynchronously. Now for that we will use security and fraud detection. So for the security and fraud detections we will use tokenizers JSON for the protect of card detail. Then we have machine learning for the AWS fraud detections. Uh, Now scaling we have rate limiters to prevent abuse, and starting transaction based on the users, based on the region, based on the users and region. Now the next question is, how do you design e-commerce platform like Amazon? So if you want to design, for that we have to create a requirement. So we need a product catalog, order management, payment, and then search. So scalability for the millions of users. Now design approach: microservices architectures like product cart, order, payment, search. Database we have product service. We have NoSQL, MongoDB for the flexible schema, order services, SQL Postgres for the transactions, and caching Redis of frequently accessed product. Then search engines we will use Elastic for fastest product. Queue we will use Kafka for asynchronous order, and scaling we will use load balancer distributed request, and CDN caches for the product image. So these all are the way we have to design this uh, system design for the e-commerce. Now we have a notification service. How you will design a notification service? So the requirement we have sent push, email, SMS notification, handle high message through. So design approach is message queue we have to use. Kafka is event driven notifications we will use. Push notifications we have to Firebase cloud messaging, FCM we will use for the design pattern. Now email we will use SES like Amazon simple email services. Database we will use no SQL database like Mongo for storing used for preference, and scalability we will use batch processing for SMS and email. setting notification across multiple server. Now the next question is, how do you design a ride sharing service like Uber, Ola and all? So ride sharing, first we have to match the ride with the driver. We have real time location tracking. We have dynamic prices in the requirement. Then we have to write a design approach. So real time matching means WebSocket for the real time update, Redis for storing the active users location based on the driver active driver location. Database we will use Postgres for the write transactions, MongoDB for driver and write profile, driver and write. So scaling and all, we have a Kafka for write request processing and load balancers handling the API and all. Now the next question is, how do you design social media platform like Facebook? So if you design social media platform for this requirement, we have user profile, post, like, comments will be there. We have news feed personalization will be there. So for that design approach, we have database, NoSQL, NoSQL Cassandra for storing post, Graph DB, Neo4j for social connection. So this is the database we will use. For the news feed algorithms, use machine learning for the personalization, ranking, and scaling, caching with Redis for frequently accessed profile, and sorting post by the user's ID. Now the next question is, how do you design a ticket booking systems like BookMyShow? So the for the ticket booking systems, we have requirement like real time seat availability, payment processings and all. So the design approach have database. We will use SQL, Postgres for the transactional consistency, and NoSQL's Redis for the cache seat availability. Concurrency handling. So optimistic locking for the seat log booking, and message queue Kafka to process the payment. And for this scaling, we have a load balancer for traffic distributions and all. So we have a traffic distributions and all. So these all are the way where we have to create a system design, real time interview for the system design, so that easily you can crack the any product based interview questions or product based interview company interview questions. Thank you.